Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the West Grey Council Chambers. I don't think we've had them this full, certainly not in this term yet. So thank you, everybody, to be here. We'll call the meeting to order. And if you could rise, we'll take a moment of reflection before we begin. Thank you. Ask any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from anyone this morning. We have all of council here. Virtually, we have our deputy mayor, Tom Hutchison. He regrets that he couldn't be here, but is suffering from a cold. And with this many people in the room, as much as he wants to spread the love, he doesn't want to spread the cold. So thank you, Tom. Sheila, we do have virtual. Do you want to give just an update for anybody that's out there virtually?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Before I begin, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-580, meeting ID 1-5626-2480. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being held in 2 locations, on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation and comments are not monitored through live stream on YouTube and must be done through the Zoom meeting software. Both members of staff and council have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Members of council and staff will be raising their hands to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance at any point during this meeting, you can send a chat message to myself, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you.
Thank you, Sheila. Today's special council meeting, we have 2 delegations dealing with policing for the municipality. And our first delegation is from the OPP. And I'm mistaken, I'll have some names here, but being able to put the names to the right person, so I'm just going to say them and that will cover me off. Kelly Withrow, Ken Key, Paul Richardson, and Jessica Trustwell Green are here. I'm going to turn the floor over to the OPP. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship. Can I get the PowerPoint up? Thank you. Perfect. So thank you and good morning, Your Worship, members of council, Ms. Johnston, and community members in person and watching virtually. My name is Kelly Withrow. I am a sergeant with the Municipal Policing Bureau of the OPP, and it's my pleasure to be here this morning to present to you the OPP contract proposal for policing services for the municipality of West Grey. Also joining us is Staff Sergeant Ken Key. He is the manager of the Municipal Policing Bureau. Jessica Trustwell Green, Senior Financial Analyst with the OPP, and Inspector Paul Richardson, Detachment Commander of the Grey Bruce OPP Detachment, sitting beside me. This proposal was requested by the municipality of West Grey through council through a request sent to the Ministry of Solicitor General. Therefore, my purpose here this morning is to provide you with information about policing services provided by the OPP and the estimated cost of those services. We are not here to compare the OPP with your current West Grey Police Service. We currently have a great working relationship with the members of West Grey Police Service, and regardless of the outcome of this costing, we wish to continue working together with the purpose of maintaining the safety and security of all residents and visitors to this area. My objective this morning is to ensure you will have an understanding of the OPP's proposal in order to assist you in making an informed decision for your community's future policing needs. You will receive a lot of information today and may wish to take notes, review the material that we provide to you, and should you require further information or clarification, we could provide that to you through your CAO. In an effort to maintain transparency, all provided materials, questions, and responses will be made available to the public. In addition to this presentation, you have been provided electronic copies of the OPP contract proposal, the 2020 OPP annual report, and the current OPP strategic plan. This morning, we will address the following areas: provincial support, regional support, services delivered by the Grey Bruce OPP detachment, OPP accountability and reporting, the transition contract, and the cost of policing the municipality of West Grey. At the end, we can answer questions for clarification in relation to this presentation. Next slide. Here you have an organizational chart of our command structure showing our Commissioner Thomas Creek, along with our deputy commissioners and provincial commanders. Mary Silverthorne is provincial commander responsible of corporate services. Rose DeMarco is deputy commissioner responsible for traffic safety and operational support. Carrie Dart is acting deputy commissioner of investigations and organized crime. And Chris Harkins is deputy commissioner of field operations. The OPP is a provincial police service. Our commissioner reports to the Solicitor General, Michael Kurtzner. Next slide. The Ontario Provincial Police 2020 to 2022 strategic plan provides overall direction as we evolve and modernize the policing services and transformation. The OPP has identified 3 strategic priorities. Their personal and professional best. When it comes to our work, a responsive and evolving OPP that empowers our members to ensure the we serve. Next slide. You just click, yeah. The OPP was formed in 1909 and has a long history of municipal policing in Ontario. Ontario on a cost recovery basis. We have 147 contracts with our municipalities and 187 municipalities receiving policing services from the OPP under a Section 5.1 Police Service Act non-contract agreement. The OPP cost recovery process is mandated and geared to achieving fair cost recovery from municipalities. With over 8,000 members assigned to work locations across Ontario, we have vast experience in both provincial and municipal policing throughout the province. Of our 8,000 members, approximately 5,500 are uniform officers. Next slide. Our most recent annual report mandates. The report includes a segment on OPP municipal policing costs and resources, and it includes a breakdown of the scope of our responsibility. Next slide. In the next few slides, I'll give you a bit of an overview of the resources and services that would be available to your municipality that are managed at a provincial or regional level. Next. Cater to the people and the needs of your community. There are benefits and economies of scale that come with being part of a larger organization. Should your municipality accept the OPP proposal, you will receive extensive administrative and operational next. Sorry. There we go. Available to West Grey are many OPP specialists that will assist By choosing to be policed by the OPP, you are essentially contracting a turnkey operation. We do all the heavy lifting, so to speak, leaving your police service board to engage with the detachment commander to ensure areas of concern are being addressed. We assume responsibilities of recruitment, training, payroll, freedom of information requests, policy development, and maintenance, all conducted internally, alleviating work to the municipality. With over 100 years of policing experience in both rural and urban settings, policies are developed and maintained to improve policing and limit risk. The OPP is liable for any damages that arise from any The OPP is accountable to the municipalities that we serve on all levels of our organization. This is affirmed provincially by our Commissioner Thomas Carrique, regionally by Chief Superintendent Media Services, Community Policing, Traffic and Marine, The in-service training program is designed to offer professional instruction to uniform OPP employees. Instruction is provided for mandatory training in the areas that you see here on the slide. The in-service training is a division of the OPP Academy located in Orillia at our general headquarters. There are 15 deployed sites across the province providing training for every region. In-service training is mandatory for every officer to attend and successfully complete annually. Voluntary fitness testing is also available to all OPP employees, along with support to work towards successfully completing this test. The OPP is proud to be an industry leader in training. We subject matter experts. To support continuous learning, the OPP hosts lunch and learn sessions on topics related to human rights, diversity, and inclusion. These sessions are made available to all OPP and civilian members via webinars. For those members who are unable to attend the live sessions, recordings are made available on the Academy's online learning portal, OPP Learn. And the OPP has partnered with the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion to provide access to their training, research, reports, and other events. Each month, they host educational webinars offered in both French and English. Other courses related to diversity and inclusion include the Indigenous Awareness course and Positive Space Training, which is a peer-based training that promotes LGBTQ inclusive, welcoming, and supportive work environments. Next slide. Ontario Regulation 399 sets out requirements for adequate and effective policing services. Adequacy and effectiveness of the OPP is monitored both internally by our Quality Assurance Unit, as well as externally by the provincial auditor who conducts audits at regular intervals, with follow-ups to monitor the progress of any items requiring corrective action. So far, I've talked about the services the OPP provides on a provincial and regional level. I will now speak about our integrated service delivery model in the next slide, followed by a short video on the model. Next slide. There are advantages and benefits to the OPP using an integrated service delivery model. This allows us to flex to meet fluctuating demands at a lower cost as we police large areas and many municipalities. It allows sharing of administration and other resources while meeting municipal and provincial policing duties. Some of the benefits include economies of scale in both personnel and resources, having a large number of officers to draw on for major occurrences, and coordinate a policing strategy for multi-jurisdictional issues. Advancements in technologies have enabled real-time tracking of OPP frontline vehicles by way of GPS or Global Positioning System GPS is now installed on all frontline units and has led to the next evolution of dispatching in the OPP, closest to call for high priority calls. Communicators employ a feature called Recommend Unit within computer-aided dispatch within our CAD. Recommend Unit is a technological enhancement in CAD that identifies units based on their proximity to the call, regardless of their detachment affiliation. This way, the unit closest to the incident is dispatched. I will now play a video that builds on these points.
The Ontario Provincial Police operate out of host detachments, satellite offices, 5 regional headquarters, 1 divisional headquarters, and a general headquarters. With a footprint that covers more than 1.1 million kilometers of land and 100,000 kilometers of waterways. The OPP currently provides policing services to more than 320 municipalities on a cost recovery basis. Detachments operate on an integrated service delivery model, which allows for the blending and sharing of resources. Detachment officers provide policing services to 1 or more municipality and also provide policing services on King's highways, provincial parks and waterways in accordance with provincial obligations. Officers in detachments are not designated as municipal or provincial officers and will often work in multiple locations during a shift. Integrated service provides the OPP with more flexibility to meet changing policing demands at a lower cost than having one standalone detachment serving a single municipality. It allows municipalities and the province to share the cost of detachment supervisory and administrative positions and detachment infrastructure. Combining the resources required to police multiple municipalities within one detachment provides a larger number of officers to draw on for major occurrences and emergencies. Detachments can direct more resources to a major occurrence without relying on overtime. The integrated service model also allows for coordinated policing strategies for issues that often span multiple jurisdictions. Being part of a larger regional-type policing model offers communities the opportunity to engage and partner with other community safety and wellness agencies outside of municipal boundaries. Regional and general headquarters supply regular and specialty resources to detachments as needed. The OPP utilizes daily activity reporting as a system to record the time and location an officer works to ensure municipalities do not pay for provincial policing obligations. The OPP does not typically provide a standalone or independent policing option, as the integrated model is more efficient and works best with the OPP's footprint.
Thank you for that video. If you can put it back to slide 15. Perfect, thank you. I would now like to introduce Inspector Paul Richardson, Detachment Commander of the Grey Bruce OPP, to provide you with an overview of the proposed amalgamated structure and policing deployment.
Thank you, Kelly. Morning, everybody. Morning, Your Worship, members of council, Ms. Johnston. I also wanted to recognize a number of our policing partners in the room today that I see and recognize, and welcome everybody this morning. Also with me is Superintendent Sean Nash from Regional Command, and Staff Sergeant Deb Anderson and Staff Sergeant Keegan Wilcox, who are the operations managers in Grey Bruce. A little bit about myself. I'm a 22-year member of the Ontario Provincial Police. My duties in my 22 years have included detective constable, investigating serious drug offenses and offenses of violence. I've served as a platoon sergeant, a detachment operations manager, and most recently as a detachment commander. I've served many years as a detachment commander. I've remained in the detachment setting because I enjoy supporting our members and serving our communities. In addition to those duties, I am also a public order unit commander overseeing large-scale public events and a critical incident commander leading our tactical teams and negotiators in response to barricaded persons and hostage situations. I leverage all of that experience in my daily decision-making. Having said all of that, the most important part of my job is relationships. Quite often when municipalities consider the OPP, they fear losing the relationships with local policing and policing issues. It remains my focus to maintain a relationship with all the communities we serve, and that will not change with the municipality of West Grey. Next slide, please. You'll see proposed structure in this slide. Should West Grey elect to receive policing services from the OPP, I, the detachment commander, will always ensure that all adequacy standards are met and that all appropriate resources remain focused on meeting West Grey's unique policing needs. I'll do that in consultation with the OPP detachment boards. What is presented here is an overall proposed detachment structure, which also includes the amalgamated West Grey Police Service members. The detachment would be managed by myself, the Inspector Detachment Commander, supported by the two operations managers you've met here today. And as you heard in the video, officers are not designated as municipal or provincial officers, but rather work in an integrated fashion in multiple zones throughout their detachment area during their shift. You can see there there'll be 4 frontline platoons consisting of 3 sergeants and 19 or 20 uniform members per platoon. 4 platoons will be primarily responsible for the municipality of West Grey, Chatsworth, Georgian Bluffs, Grey Highlands, Meaford, Southgate, and surrounding unorganized areas. We also have a crime unit that consists of 1 regional sergeant, 8 detective constables. And in addition to that, we have 3 community street crime unit members. Here again, our integrated deployment model will allow for our crime resources to work throughout the entire detachment area in a seamless fashion. The 3 CSCU positions will be primarily responsible for drug investigations and property-related offenses in partnership with the South Bruce detachment, which increases our complement and is a force multiplier. So what that means is South Bruce has a contingent of street crime members as well as Grey Bruce, and they work together as a unit. There'll also be 1 court officer, 1 media officer, 8 detachment administrative positions. The court is always assisted by 3 special constables, and they provide administrative support not only for the courts, but for the detachment as well. The chief and the inspector of West Grey will be subject to a rank level determination process. If they choose to apply, once their ranks have been determined, they will be placed into the detachment structure accordingly. Should scheduled platoon members be unavailable to attend an urgent call for service within their assigned zone, excuse me, whether that be for another call for service training or court commitments, for example, officers from other neighboring zones and or detachments, as well as our court officers, will respond. In addition to that, you see here the members that were all fully equipped to respond as well. Officers from the neighboring zones and or detachments as well as the courts respond. The integrated service delivery model essentially combines all available officers within patrol zones and neighboring areas to provide a large number of officers to draw from for major occurrences. To respond to any calls for service should scheduled members be unavailable. This model also provides flexibility in terms of also overall supervision. This detachment maintains close working relationships with the South Bruce and Wellington detachments. As a matter of fact, prior to coming here, I was a detachment commander in Wellington County. And prior to that, I was the operations manager in South Bruce. So I'm very familiar with the operations in both those areas. We all remain at each other's immediate disposal in the event of a major occurrence. Next slide, please. So you can see the current zone structure and then the proposed zone structure. The officers will be deployed from a newly structured detachment in West Grey. You can see here the zones. So we have Georgia Bluffs, Chatsworth, Meaford, Grey Highlands, Southgate, North and South Bruce Peninsula. We also have Saugeen First Nation and West Grey. West Grey would become Zone 8 and the 8th zone in our area to receive services. As we saw on the previous slide, the frontline patrol schedule will have officers providing coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Current OPP technology relates to GPS in cars and allows for dispatching in closest to the call priorities, regardless of where the car is assigned, including other detachments or specialists passing through the area. So all of our cars do have GPS. Regardless if you're from a different detachment, different area, different unit, we can track that vehicle. And if you're the closest to the call, you'll be dispatched to respond. And that includes myself or any of the operations managers. Next slide, please. Just another, I'm sorry. There you see just a map of the overall area. It will be the responsibility of the detachment commander and operations managers and all of the platoon sergeants to ensure appropriate coverage throughout the detachment and throughout West Grey. In April 2015, the OPP implemented the Focus Patrol program. Focus Patrols are one of the OPP's major efficiencies projects designed to modernize the delivery of its policing services. The objective of Focus Patrols is to reduce crime, collisions, and victimizations while maximizing resource deployment. Focus Patrols address community traffic and crime hotspots identified through data analysis or driven by public complaints or in consultation with the Police Service Board or the Mayor and Council. Focus Patrols enable the organization to better target crime and reduce victimizations by putting the right resources in the right place at the right time. We also have available to us a civilian analyst, civilian crime analyst, who is specifically trained in designating these spots and uses intelligence to make sure that we are in the right place at the right time doing the right things. For generations, officers at shift change would inform the incoming shift of details and areas of concern. With the demand for greater financial accountability, the OPP formalized and structured this process. Through analytical research, areas of concerns are identified and incident-specific plans are created to reduce the identified trend, be it traffic or crime related. Officers are assigned to participate in the Focus Patrol and submit a supplementary report highlighting efforts, actions, and results at the end of their shift. The results are examined and shared with our members and eventually our police service boards. Next slide, please. The concept of community policing is realized when police mobilize, engage, and partner with members of the community to prevent crime and reduce victimization. The intelligence-led and consultative approach to crime prevention employed by the OPP has resulted in effective and proactive programs for deterring and reducing crime, as well as fostering relationships necessary to aid in solving crimes that do occur. Research, development, and implementation of various programs and collaborative processes. Police service boards play an important role in determining objectives and priorities for the provision of police services. A local West Grey Police Services Board would be maintained should the municipality choose police service delivery by the OPP until the implementation of the CSPA. The objectives and priorities for delivery of police services within the municipality are determined after consultation with the detachment commander. As detachment commander, I will oversee these operationally. Just wanted to point out, you'll see some photos up there. That's Nick Wilson, who's our community safety officer. On the top right, he's participating in an online phone-in radio program. On the top left, he is providing education to seniors on fraud prevention. On the bottom right, you will see our auxiliary members participating in a food drive. I'm very, very proud of our auxiliary program. Most recently, I presented 3 auxiliary members with long service medals totaling almost 80 years of service to the auxiliary program. These are volunteers that are not remunerated in any way. They just do so out of service to their community. So we have a very robust auxiliary program that I'm very proud of. And then in the bottom left, you'll see our Ride Smart program. That's Constable Adam Belanger. It's a specific program geared to not only providing bike safety education, but bike repair education and safe practices. It also goes so far as to identify those in needs and at time provide safety equipment for bikes and bicycles themselves. The other thing I wanted to speak about in community services is our new MSERP program, our mobile response team specifically geared to mental health. We have taken a bit of a different approach whereby we partner with Grey Bruce Health Services in the delivery of crisis intervention and de-escalation in partnership with the police. So we are co-located with a mental health clinician that is in our office, but they are an employee of Grey Bruce Health Services. Just in the first month alone of that program, we've seen 57 diversions from hospital, where patients in the community have got the right service in the right place at the right time. And if you consider the impacts on the local hospitals not having to entertain 57 additional patients, it's a very successful program. We hope that with the success of it, that we can make argument to continue and expand the program. Next slide, please. Again, just some of the things that we offer in the way of services to our community. We have school fundraising educational program, community safety and awareness presentations on scams, drugs, bullying, and elder abuse, active participation at community events, lock it or lose it campaigns to encourage people to secure their property, crime prevention through environmental design, which is a specific program educating people on how to fortify their property so they're not victimized in the future. We conduct displays at community events and encourage recruitment. And we have leadership and participation in community wellness and mental health committees. And we spoke of just one of those committees recently. If an amalgamation were to take place in the OPP, we're given the important responsibility of policing this close-knit community. Its residents can expect to continue to see local officers in schools teaching valuable programs such as internet safety and the importance of positive relationships. We will be at community events with unique activities to engage and build the continued trust of residents. We will be at fundraising and annual events such as Christmas Cheer, Cops for Cancer, Stuff a Cruiser. The Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Commander will continue to work closely and enthusiastically with the West Grey Police Service Board to ensure the local objectives and concerns are a priority and that a community-based policing model serves the needs of the residents of West Grey. Next slide, please. Just wanted to follow up on that last point and identify that as a detachment commander in the OPP, I am accountable to the local police services board and to the mayor and council. It's been my practice anywhere I've served as the detachment commander to have a relationship with the police service board, with the mayor, with the CAO. So we don't have to wait for a police service board meeting to identify issues and address them. And I don't say that in the exclusion of the police service board, but more so in the inclusion of everybody to ensure there's appropriate service delivery to the communities. In March 2019, Ontario passed the Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act and established the Community Safety and Policing Act. Once enforced, the CSPA 2019 will replace the Police Services Act. This change is expected, well, it was expected in early 2022. I think we're expecting early 2023 or mid 2023. The two main areas that will affect the municipality of West Grey upon transition will be the Police Service Board and the contract. There will still be a board and an agreement in place of a contract will exist. I will explain it in the next two slides. Next slide.
Yeah, if you just go back one. Perfect.
Thank you. When the new legislation is enacted, the municipality of West Grey would be required to transition from a police service board to a new OPP detachment board framework. There to be one OPP detachment board or more than one OPP detachment board if the regulations allow for it, for each detachment of the OPP that provides policing in a municipality or First Nations community. The ministry is committed to working with municipalities that are wishing to amalgamate on a case-by-case basis. Just to follow up on that point, I've worked in detachments where there has been one board, Wellington County specifically, and it works very well. I've also worked in areas with more than one board, and that works as well too. It's just about partnership and working together. With the new legislation, obviously, there will be a requirement for one board, and West Gray would be a part of that one board. Is that fair to say, Kelly? Thank you. And is there one more slide there? If it is the municipality's decision to amalgamate, you would enter into a Section 10 contract, which we refer to here on the slide. We refer to that Section 10 contract as a transition contract, and we'll speak to it in detail and later in the presentation. When the CSPA comes into effect, your Section 10 contract will cease to exist. However, it will be replaced by a policing service arrangement. What is important to note is that there will be no change to service delivery or billing during the transition period. I think that is an important piece. It should be seamless. And I will now turn it back to Sergeant Withrow. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Inspector. You have heard about services being provided to you on a provincial and regional level, as well as the operational plan of the detachment. Over the next several slides, we will go over information relating to the transition contract, proposed amalgamated staffing, as well as the contract proposal costs. Should the municipality of West Gray accept the OPP's proposal, you will enter into a transition contract before being integrated into the OPP service delivery model. Next slide. So why do we need a transition contract? There's three main reasons. The first is Ontario Regulations 26714 was enacted on January 1st, 2015, and deals with how OPP bills municipalities for policing. The regulation was and is specific to municipalities that were currently policed by the OPP. New municipalities that transition to the OPP after 2015 need to therefore go through a transition contract before being integrated into the current OPP billing model. Second, historical daily activity report and calls for service data are required. In order for the OPP to effectively integrate new municipalities into the current billing model, we require workload data from the municipality while being policed by the OPP. Specifically, activity reporting data and calls for service data within our systems and databases used in the OPP billing model. In order to accomplish this, municipalities are required to enter into a 3+ year contract so that that activity can be collected from officers working in this new zone. And the final reason involves the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, or the OCPC. In order for a municipality to change their police service arrangement, the OCPC must provide approval. Two of the Commission's main goals are to ensure that the new policing arrangement will provide adequate and effective policing services for the municipality of West Gray, and that the employees of the West Gray Police Service are dealt with in a reasonable manner. The Commission measures policing services using full-time equivalents, referred to as FTEs. So as such, an FTE-based transition contract allows them to assess the adequacy of a new policing arrangement. Next slide. During the transition contract, the municipality of West Gray would enter into an agreement for a defined number of contractual hours of service, represented by uniform full-time equivalents, or FTEs, and civilian FTEs. After 3+ years, the municipality will transition into the OPP billing model. When I say 3+, I mean 3 complete full years. One full-time equivalent is equal to 1,417 hours. This is an availability factor used to identify time spent in your community where an officer is providing proactive policing service or responding to calls for service. They are what we call boots on the ground hours. Our current OPP billing model for municipal cost recovery is provincially focused, meaning it's based on the services we provide to all municipalities we recover policing costs from. Base services include the infrastructure, the people, and the equipment to provide proactive policing and respond to calls. It is billed on a per property basis. Calls for service costs are calculated on a 4-year rolling average, and the municipality is billed for their usage, so the percentage of the provincial total. And then there's the other costs that relate to overtime, enhancements, court security, prisoner transportation, as well as accommodation and cleaning. Next slide. This is the proposed amalgamated staffing should West Grey choose to amalgamate. The first column shows the Grey Bruce OPP detachment complement. The second column shows the current West Grey Police Service complement, full-time and part-time. The third column shows the combined complement. The fourth column shows the proposed structure complement should an amalgamation occur. And the fifth column shows the portion that the municipality of West Grey will be billed for during the transition contract period. And this is the column I will be focusing on. Please note that the OPP will not be taking on any West Grey Police Service part-time officers. Once the amalgamation occurs, if they are welcome to apply as part-time officers through the OPP process. If the chief and inspector choose to join the OPP, their rank will be determined through an OPP rank level determination process. If they do not apply, these positions will remain and will be filled by officers. The positions have been placed into the subject to review section of this chart. West Grey's share of the detachment commander position, so the 1 inspector and the 2 staff sergeant positions, has been calculated at 0.17, so 17% of an FTE each. For this amalgamation, there will be a position for 3 sergeants, 17 constables, 1 civilian administration, and 1 court officer admin, and 2 positions subject to rank level review for a total of 24 FTEs. Next slide. If you could refer to your 2023 contract policing proposal document and turn to page 9, I'll break up these cost summary page into 3 sections. We use a cost recovery formula to calculate the cost of policing our municipalities. This formula is updated annually to reflect the rates for that year. Where there are notes on your copy in the second column, further clarifications are provided on page 10. The first section indicates the total of FTEs billed to the municipality with associated salary rates for each rank. In this slide, in column 1, you will see the 0.17 or the 17% for both the inspector and the staff sergeant position, the 3 sergeants, the 17 constable positions, and the 2 rank level determination for the chief and inspector, as well as the 1 admin position and the court officer position. In column 2, you will see the cost per each FTE, and then column 3 has the total that you will be required to pay. For uniform members, it would be $3.5 million, and for civilian members, it would be $180,000. Next slide. Looking at the middle portion of the contract proposal summary page, in the area titled Support Costs, Salary and Benefits, it will show you exactly which support staffs are required, how many, and at what cost. For a police service to function, we require support staff. These support services are billed on a per officer basis. For West Grey, the calculation would be the 22.51 uniform FTEs multiplied by the per officer rate shown in the first column. Municipal Policing Bureau leads the project that reviews and refreshes the costing formula. The formula is reviewed annually and is subject to change with the addition of new cost categories. The review process is done in consultation with staff in all commands throughout the OPP. It's important to note that the costs are a fair representation of the cost to provide municipal policing and that they are not all inclusive. The addition of a new cost to the formula may require Treasury Board approval. Next slide. If you could refer to the section titled Other Direct Operating Expenses or ODOEs, we also recover for other direct operating expenses on a per officer basis. So again, to calculate these expenses, you multiply the per officer cost in the first column by 22.51 for the total cost in the second column. For ODOEs, your municipality would be required to pay $320,000. You will see the year 1 adjustment of $47,000 because uniform and equipment is billed in the initial cost, so you are not required to pay for the per officer cost in the first year. Next slide. Contract initial costs are seen on page 11 of the proposal document. Upon transition, there are initial startup costs with respect to uniform equipment and vehicles. The quantities are listed there along with their associated cost. These are a one-time only cost applied at startup. The total initial cost for West Grey is $766,000. Please note that costs associated with a new detachment will not be the responsibility of the OPP and will be above and beyond any of these costs. This will be the responsibility of the municipality. Next slide. And finally, this slide summarizes the estimate policing and initial costs that you will find in your proposal. For total uniform salary and benefits, 3.5 million. Total detachment civilian salaries and benefits, 180,000. Support staff salaries and benefits, 408,000. Other direct operating expenses, 320,000. Uniform and equipment year one adjustment is a minus 47,000. The subtotal estimated annual policing cost is 4.4 million. The initial startup cost, 766,000, for a total estimated cost, including the startup cost, of $5.1 million. Next slide. As part of the request from the municipality of West Grey, a facility physical security and operational assessment was completed. On March 10th, 2022, the OPP facility section attended the West Grey Police Service and conducted 3 assessments: a site selection overview, a building environmental assessment, and an operational overview. As a result of the threat risk assessment completed by OPP facility section, we do not recommend the use of the current West Grey Police facility. So should the municipality choose to amalgamate with the OPP, the municipality will be required to identify a suitable alternate location or property where they could build a new detachment or retrofit an existing building that could be converted into an OPP detachment that would meet the requirements of the OPP facility guidelines. Next slide. The OPP will assess the physical and electronic records located at the West Grey Police Service. Should the amalgamation move ahead, our Records Information Management Unit will work collaboratively with the municipality of West Grey and the West Grey Police Service to ensure that legislated and regulatory requirements have been met. Next slide. There are other financial considerations that do not form part of this proposal, as they would be the responsibility of the municipality of West Grey. They would be the cost of maintaining the Police Services Board, any applicable costs associated to the storage of electronic and physical records, disposal of assets, severances for municipal employees in accordance with your collective agreements, and pension divestment. Slide 37. Next slide, sorry. So the next step would be to take the time to review the information we've provided. Using the established process, any questions can be coordinated through your CAO and we will respond accordingly. There's information about the OPP and the services we provide on our website at opp.ca. If you search for Municipal Policing Bureau from the main page, you will find additional information and resources that should answer some of your questions. Feel free to direct your residents to this information. If the contract proposal is accepted, we will require a bylaw accepting the proposal. An information session for the amalgamated members will occur. An OCPC brief will need to be submitted by the municipality. Then there will be a hearing regarding the disbandment. We will then have a training of officers and the transition to the OPP. Next slide. And if the OPP contract proposal is declined, I've advised Ms. Johnson to please notify us through email. We will continue to have the same excellent working relationship with the municipality of West Grey and with the West Grey Police Service, with the common goal of ensuring the safety and security of all residents and visitors in the West Grey and surrounding areas. Next slide. This concludes the presentation. I'd like to thank you for your time this morning, and I'd also like to thank Ms. Johnston for her assistance throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. would you take any questions this
Sure.
morning?
Yeah.
If that would be.
Absolutely.
Mr. Richards, okay. I'll ask the council members. First, are there any questions that arrive quickly on our minds? I'll start with the first person that puts their hand up, Councillor Townsend. Councillor Townsend, Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, to our OPP friends, truly respect the work that you folks do and the conditions that you have to work in, the same as I've always respected the work and the conditions that our own local force do. You people do a very fine job. There are some burning questions, though, when it comes to policing, and we have a very good setup here in West Gray. We have local officers that can respond in a timely fashion and know the people and those sorts of things. So I have a few questions here that hopefully we can get some answers to. The OPP has about 6,800 members, and there's usually about 20 on shift in the platoons out of Gray County, from what we're reading and understanding. So just wondering if staffing is what it is, why municipal forces such as West Gray have to go in and assist OPP and take calls for them. West Gray looked after 21 calls for the OPP in 2022.
I can speak to that. Thank you for the question. I would say that there's a reciprocity in policing between the OPP and all of our municipal partners, where we lend a hand to each other. There will be and have been occasions where we in turn have provided assistance to the West Gray Police Service and other services in the area. The common goal is not where you're doing the job, but how you're doing the job, and to ensure that we are addressing public safety and the needs of all of our citizens. So I guess my answer is that it goes both ways. It does go both ways.
Okay. We'll leave that at that. The costing of the $5.1 million that we received for the first year, then there's after that, there's a subsequent letter talking about another $146,717 that needs to be added to that right off the bat. With your costing, is municipalities used to getting surprise bills after things carry on? Because I know in talking to people in Orangeville, they received a costing from you, and in the first 3 months, their bill went up $800,000. So that's a concern to us at this council table also.
So I can speak to that letter. Are you referring to the letter for the 2020? Does it have to do with the radio system? Yeah, so that was included. We were trying to explain to you why the cost difference between your 2022 contract proposal process and your 2023 contract proposal process. So in your 5.1 million, that's included. That's not on top.
In your estimates, a lot of it is marked as that. It's estimates. It's not a fixed contract or a fixed budget, where with our local force, we deal with a fixed budget. We know what to do as far as taxation, and we know where we stand as a municipality. But with the OPP pricing, there could be, and I think you alluded to in your presentation, new things come up, other things change, that sort of thing. That's not included. That would automatically trickle down to the municipality and would be over and above what we as a council had budgeted for that fiscal year.
Yeah, so we do, the costs that we do provide you are estimates. We do a reconciliation at the end of the year to actual costs. I don't know if I would have the number offhand on how accurate we are. But yeah, I wouldn't know that at this time, but I can get that number for you to see how accurate the estimates and the actual reconciliation is.
Okay. Another thing that is of concern to the residents of West Gray, currently, we have officers, boots on the ground in West Gray 24/7. And under the way the OPP operate, will there be times where West Gray will not have an officer at all? And I know you use the closest to formula, but there's been many times that I've heard where OPP doesn't have anybody available or very limited, and it's a long way from Tobermory to West Gray. So will there be times where West Gray will have absolutely 0 officers?
To speak to that question, part of the planning process here is to ensure that there's a facility, a police facility in the municipality of West Gray. The officers responding from West Gray will be the officers that you see today because they will be amalgamated and part of the Ontario Provincial Police should you choose to go that route. They will report to this area. They'll be assigned to zones in this area and still work this area. Now, what I will say in the interest of integrity is there may be a call in a neighboring municipality that draws officers to that call in the immediacy of that call. I would suggest to you that that happens today in all of our municipalities, regardless of what uniform we wear. But there will always be officers available to respond to calls.
Yeah. Another
So
thing,
there will be boots on the ground.
okay, thank you. Another thing too with the OPP, I know you guys get pushed and pulled in all different directions. And when there's major incidents like the Ottawa blockade or something's going on down in Caledonia, you guys get pulled, which stretches your resources at the local level, has to, because those officers that are down there are coming from somewhere. And that would, again, to limit your coverage of Grey County, of West Gray in general. Is that a correct assumption?
I respectfully, no, it's not a correct assumption. And I'll explain why, sir. I think Ottawa is an excellent example of how during difficult times, we were able to service not only Ottawa, but Windsor and London with public order units because we have additional services to just our frontline policing. So we have a number of units in Aurelia, and those are still active serving police officers that can be deployed to those events. A number of the officers that went to Ottawa and Windsor were specialty services that I oversee in terms of our ERP program and public order, our true members, our tactical members. That was a number of the officers that were deployed. We maintained effective policing in all our communities during that time because we're deep in resources.
Thank you. To the facility, because we will have to provide one either way we go. What I know, Orangeville had a building that was, I believe, from what I understand, a couple years old when OPP took over Orangeville and required $1.5 million in upgrades to bring it to your standards. Now, and recently announced, I think it was in the news yesterday, they're building a new OPP detachment in Clinton with a $20 million price tag. Who would pay for that? The residents of West Gray were up in arms when we had the previous council with a budget of around 8 million. Where's 20 million come from?
I don't have information about that Clinton one. I don't know.
No problem. Back to the issue of coverage for West Gray. 4 years ago, after the last election, I was appointed to the Police Services Board, and I attended. We were doing a proposal for the township of Chatsworth, so I attended those meetings, and in those meetings, the OPP made comment to the fact that Chatsworth Township would have 2 cars in it 24/7. Yet we know that that's not a fact because our own police force had to respond to a call in the village of Chatsworth where your detachment is because you guys had no one available. So it just, I'm struggling with trying to protect the residents of West Gray. That's my ultimate goal here. There's, I know there's a lot of people think it comes down to dollars and cents, but when it comes to officers being close, responding to calls, saving lives, you can't put a price tag on that, in my opinion. So those are just some of the things I have. You talk about local officers and keeping officers local. Again, in talking to people I know in Orangeville, within the first 2 years, all the Orangeville officers were moved out and replaced by new recruits out of the academy. So you lose that connection with your community. I mean, our guys and gals, they can drive down Main Street and they know who should be walking down Main Street, who shouldn't, who should be behind the wheel and who shouldn't. And I think you really lose that. And no disrespect, but you really lose that with the OPP or any other police force because your officers are moving in and out all the time or taking promotions or whatever, being reassigned. And I just don't see the local connection there. And I know our own force does a bang up job on the community policing. They're in the school zones, they're in the schools, they're participating in toy drives and food drives and all that sort of stuff. And with the resources of the OPP being so stretched right now, I mean, you look at the Auditor General's report for Ontario, and that was in what, December 21, that said that you guys were 1,000 members short on the front line. That has to be growing. And when you look at your demographics, the amount of officers there's more officers closer to retirement age than there is coming into the system. And I can only see your numbers getting stretched even further. So again, not sure why you would want to take on more work when you have less and less bodies all the time. Other than that, I'll leave it for the other members of council right now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else have questions at this point in time? Councillor Shea, Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks for the presentation. So about the facility, we currently have a plan to build a facility for our current force that was put on hold while the costing was underway. I'm wondering if you have had a chance to review that plan and if that facility would be suitable to OPP if at a later date we decided to transition.
So here at the moment, we don't have our facilities unit with us, but however, we have put them in touch with the municipality so that they will be working closely with them in relation to your new build. So that it's built to the standards of the OPP if you chose to come over.
Okay. One of my concerns is that we're building a building currently estimated at $8 million. On my math brings it in around more like 13, but and we're going to have a 30-year mortgage on that. And I'm not sure if how this council is going to decide in terms of your proposal. But if we don't decide to go with your proposal at the current time, we may decide at a future time in 4 years or 8 years. And I would hate for that building to be determined at that point to be substandard for OPP standards and to have to be abandoned or heavily upgraded. So my question is it possible to determine the effectiveness of the currently designed building for OPP even if we don't accept the proposal currently?
Yep.
Okay, good.
For sure. Yes.
That's one of my main questions. So my colleague at the other end of the town council table here was alluding to a lot of comments that circulate around the community, and you've been through this process before, I presume, and you've heard all of these comments before, I assume. But I wonder if like one of the comments that we get is there's this this phrase called drive-by policing, where there are not really police in the community. They attend if called, they're there, they leave, and you never see them again. Is this a reality? Is this what we will be expecting if we go with OPP, or is that phrase inappropriate?
A lot to unpack on what's been discussed here today. I'd like to go back just to the $20 million in Clinton for a moment. Not specific to Clinton, but I have been the operations manager and detachment commander in places where a number of new structures were put up, and that did not affect the cost per household or billing for those municipalities, to my knowledge. The cost for policing did not increase because of a new building. There's a number of options when it comes to new buildings, but none of those, in my experience, have caused an increase to cost in policing. When it comes to drive-by policing, I'm going to share some personal experience. I've lived in the same community for 21 years. I am known as a police officer. I've coached hockey in that community. We live in a rural area. The members that serve these communities have to live somewhere. So they live in these communities, they participate in these communities. I know that I can look around this room and see people who are still engaged in coaching hockey and soccer and engaging with their communities. So we wear a different shoulder flash in the OPP, but we are still engaged in our communities. And so is the Westgrave Police Service.
Good, thank you. If I may. Another concern that has been raised is that currently, if our police force needs a higher level of expertise than we currently have in-house, we can turn to the OPP, and that will be provided at no cost. And if we go with the OPP, that would be provided at a cost.
No, that's not correct. So they are provincial resources, so they would not be costed back to the municipality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I know that you said you didn't want to compare yourself to the Westgrave Force, and I think that's appropriate. There is a Westgrave Force presentation later this morning, and the Auditor General's report about the OPP is going to be part of that, I understand. Are you able to comment on that report and how alarmed or concerned we should be about that?
What I'll say in relation to the report is this. In the pursuit of excellence in a policing organization, the appropriate course of action is to take a good hard look at how you're delivering business. Through that process, there was some recommendations made. We've embraced those recommendations, and we work with the information in that report to ensure the best quality service delivery we can. So it was an opportunity to look at our organization and have an opportunity to make changes for the benefit of our communities, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
I'll give it to so another sort of urban myth that we hear that may be true, I'm not certain, is that a lot of towns, I'm told almost all of them, who switch to the OPP after about 5 years suddenly find that their costs are higher than they would have been if they had not switched. That there's this sort of surprise, and that every town that switches after about 5 years regrets switching. Do you have any experience with that?
I do not.
Okay, have you heard that story?
I have not.
Okay.
I don't hear very many municipalities who regret the decision, but
Okay. I was intrigued and pleased by you saying that you would consult on focus areas, focus patrols with the board and the mayor and possibly council. In part, that sort of caught my attention because in our current board council structure, and we've had quite a bit of turnover at the last election. So I was on the board before the election. I'm not on the board now, but there has been something of a disconnect, and so the council has not really felt very well connected to the force. The board was sort of like a little bit of a stepping stone or a gateway or something like that. So if the OPP is able to collaborate more closely with council, I think that would alleviate that problem. And you've identified that local boards are on the way out. We won't have local boards in another year and a half or so. So again, if council and the mayor are able to and CAO are able to collaborate with the OPP to identify focused patrols, enhance services, customize or tailor the response to the community, I think that's going to be a really great thing. We haven't been able to do that with our current setup in the last number of years, but I think I would look forward to that if we were able to get that with the OPP. I'll stand down for now. Thank you.
Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Lots of information in front of us between your presentation, West Gray's coming in, and our consultant tomorrow. So lots to digest. Some of the questions I had are sort of already been answered, but I have a couple that I'd like to just get clarified on. OPP does regional enforcement, it sounds like. And I think I read in the report somewhere that there would be 2 officers that report to our station, and then from there, they could be in West Gray or they could be somewhere else, depending on the demand. How many officers are there on at a time in the region 24/7? Like on a one day, how many officers are on in the region?
In region, do you mean West region from Essex to Tobermory and everything in between?
Well, in the region that we're being policed on. We're part of the South Bruce or Grey Bruce region, right? Sorry. Yeah. So in our region.
So the truth is that number varies daily. There are competing priorities in terms of. Would it help if I stood?
Well, can the mic still work?
There we go. Now,
Will the
can you
mic
still hear me if I stand?
As long as the mic's here.
That's
yeah, okay.
The number of officers in an area depends on what's going on that day. Is it a long weekend? Do we have our traffic unit on? Do we have extra members providing traffic? Do we have our regional traffic members deployed to this area? We have a K9 and 3 ERT members that report to our area. Are they working? So they're a force multiplier as well. We're a force multiplier. So the number of officers in an area varies for the day.
Okay, thank you. I too have a concern about the building in terms of, it sounds like in the report, regardless of whether we're OPP or West Gray, we have to build a building. We need appropriate building. So that cost, as Councillor Shea had mentioned, we would want to make sure that we have a building that's appropriate for both services. If for some reason down the road, maybe, if not today, we go to OPP, that building is going to be appropriate. So I think that's a concern. I was interested in your comment you said about policing will not cost the taxpayer. The police building will not cost the taxpayer any more money for policing, but the taxpayer is paying for the building, right? Regardless whether it comes out of one pot or the other. So there is a cost to the taxpayer in that case. The other thing was there are a lot of upfront costs in terms of if switching. If we were to switch, there's a cost, and you've laid that out a little bit. But I'm interested in the one it mentions about pension divestment. So there are some costs that isn't given here, but in terms of we have to divest, or we have to we lose some of our police officers, whether they go to OPP or whether they go somewhere else, there's going to be a cost for us to disband the service. Can you speak to that a little bit to clarify what that looks like or what that may be?
That's going to depend on the collective agreements that you guys have with your officers. So I don't know what that is. I haven't seen them.
Okay.
So whether or not they come over or not, it's going to be completely different, and it's only you guys will kind of know what that looks like.
Right. So there would be a buyout cost though, right?
If that's written in their contract.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that's something that you guys would have with the
Right.
officers.
So maybe that's a question for our West Bay Police Service
Yeah.
when they do their presentation.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so they mentioned about the Auditor General, which will have further information. I think that's it for now. So lots of information to digest. Thank you for your report. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Noon, Joyce?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and thank you very much for your presentation today. It's a lot of information shared. My concern again is with the availability of officers in the area, because safety of our constituents, our people, our residents is very important to us, and how we can look after their safety. Regarding just getting some kind of stats, like if patrol isn't in the area and there's an accident, time is crucial sometimes with the victim, with response time and getting them to the hospitals with the proper care they need. Can you give us kind of any statistics of how you can monitor that if there's no one in the immediate area at the time, and how we can, make some good judgment calls if we're going to select OPP versus keeping with our current force? Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't have specific stats available to me, but what I can say from having been a sergeant and an operations manager as well as a detachment commander, we have the availability of detachments around us as well. So we have Wellington County around us, we have South Bruce around us, so we have other officers at our disposal. And as a shift supervisor, I always had the practice that if there was a gap, you move your resources to cover those gaps. So I'm not saying that will always be the case, depending on the nature of the call. Sometimes it can take a whole lot of resources, but for the most part, and in generalities, we're able to move our resources in such a way that there's adequate coverage.
Okay, thank you for that response. The other thing is, I guess, the hidden cost with the estimates that you've presented today is very difficult as a council, because right now we're going through, and it's my first time going through budget deliberations. And our current police force gives us what our cost is going to be for the current year. And outside of that, they would bring to our attention at a police board level if there's something that's come up, but overall what they give is what we can put in the levy for taxation. Is there any way that you could provide like what it's going to cost us per year, like if we were to choose OPP? Thank you.
In reference to other than your estimated proposal that we gave you, the estimated costs for 2023?
Yeah, that I have a problem with estimates. Like, I'm not sure, like.
Well, because it's a 2023, so we're giving it to you at the beginning of the year. So that's 2023. So then at the end of the year, we reconcile that. So then that reconciliation will come for 2024.
Is that a practice that you do every year then?
Absolutely, with every municipality.
Okay, so it's something like, so based on if it's going to be an overcost, then of course it's going to catch the levy in the next year. So it's nice to know if you could kind of keep it all in the current year. But anyways, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
One last one, Scott. Yeah, looking at you. Before I look at Tom up there, give you the go. Go ahead.
Yeah, just. All right. The OPP is not going to have a chief, I understand, but you're going to have an inspector, and we're going to be billed for 17% for West Gray, so that equals about 6 hours. So where is this inspector going to be based from?
So I have experience with many detachments with many reporting locations, and it's always my practice to move from location to location in support of all of our detachments. If there's something necessary for me to be in West Gray, I'll definitely be in West Gray. But specific to your question, I wouldn't be here all the time, but I would be available. Depends on the day, sir. We have locations in Wyerton and Chatsworth, where right now I divide my time, as well as Meaford and Markdale. But West Gray would become part of that process as well. So as an example, when I was in Wellington, we had 3 reporting locations, and I would make sure that I had a presence in each office. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you, Scott. Online, Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and thank you very much for your presentation. Hopefully you can hear me today. I just got a couple things. Most of my questions have been already brought forward here, but when I go back to the Auditor General's report in 2021, I guess there's a lot of areas of concern, and I'm not going to sit here and emphasize on all of them, but have you made any improvements on the several categories, or is there specific categories that you can speak to that you've improved, is my first question.
In generalities, we've looked at all of the recommendations, take them seriously, and we're working on improvements for each of them. Recruiting, getting more people in the door, getting more boots on the ground, all of those things. Scheduling, making sure we have the right people in the right place at the right time, they're always of concern to us. And we're taking each recommendation seriously and looking at the implementation and ways to implement it.
Okay, well, thank you for your response there. Another question that comes to mind, I know this is estimate, they always are an estimate, and I know that municipalities that may have experienced their estimate for 2023 hypothetically, and then it does come in at the end and it's adjusted, and then 2024 it goes up, but the calls or the service levels in 2024 may be a little less, but that number always stays the same, is what it seems like. That's what's been going on. And I'm just saying that's what I've heard through some other municipalities. One of the questions I had is, I believe we asked for these numbers. I think they were what, 2021 would be the numbers that you're basing your estimates on. Is this up to speed with 2022? Because I know that in the last quarter of last year, we actually surpassed those calls. So are these 2021 numbers that you're using, or are they up to speed with 2022?
They are the 2021 numbers.
Thank you. Yeah, just because it is something that's of concern. I know that our calls in 2022 were up, and don't quote me, but I think in the last quarter, before we got to the last quarter, we had already met the 2021 numbers, and we obviously had surpassed in the final. And other than that, I think all my other questions have been kind of raised, so I'm not going to duplicate that. And I do appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions? Jeffrey, go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. This discussion of estimates may seem unsettling, but I gather that all of our neighboring municipalities that are with the OPP are dealing with this. So for the treasurer, my question is, you deal with treasurers from neighboring communities. Have you had any, do you know anything about treasurers struggling with this estimates system in the policing costs, or is this an issue?
Thank you. In fairness, every budget is an estimate. We deal with actuals at the end of the year and your surplus or deficit carried forward. So I haven't had discussions with any neighboring municipalities specific to OP billing or their estimates or budgets, but in fairness, your budget is an estimate as well.
Thank you. I was like your high level view. Final question, going back to facilities. I understand that the OPP is building a new facility somewhere between Markdale and Dundalk. There's discussion about that. Is that in your catchment area, and would that impact us in any way?
So just to confirm, there's nothing confirmed in terms of a new build. Any new infrastructure would certainly influence the municipalities that we police. Thank you.
Okay. Just a couple of questions, if I could, from the chair, before I'll go back to Tom. In your presentation, Inspector Richardson, you said that there's 7 zones plus the unorganized areas. I didn't know we had any unorganized townships or areas in Grey County or in Bruce County.
Maybe a poor choice of verbiage. So we provide policing services to several municipalities as well as Saugeen First Nation. And then the area of Minishinabing or Cape Croker is policed by a standalone police service, but we provide support, coverage, and training to that area and that service as well.
Okay, so yeah, that just a variance of words. Very good. Okay, thank you. And the other one you said was that Wellington County, you respond to all of the municipalities there. But Wellington County is unique, if I understand it, that it's a contract with the county and the board. So the county is the board, not necessarily any of the municipalities. Is that correct?
Absolutely true. Sort of the point of that, or the genesis of that, was that they have one board. And if this municipality goes to one board with the OPP, I had relationships with each of the 7 member municipalities. So although you're correct, the contract was at the county level in Wellington, I still had relationships at the municipal level with all of the mayors and CAOs. And that stands true for where I am today as well.
Okay. Have you seen it's out in the public, the MNP, our consultants report, and the projected numbers out for the next 15 years for costing of the OPP?
I have not seen the consultant's report. I didn't realize it was available publicly.
And Kelly,
Is this yours that you hired that's presenting
Yes.
tomorrow? I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, no.
okay. Then I'll leave it and ask the question to them where they come up with the
Perfect.
numbers. I won't bother. Do you see any, or can you give me any advice on the estimates for the first 3 years? And then when the OPP billing model comes into play, have we been overestimating on the OPP costs, or where are you very close on the estimates for the first 3 years going forward from some of your past experience with other municipalities?
So because we don't like to provide the projected costs for 3+ years, because we don't want to, get any hopes up or down, that's why we do always recommend the consultant is hired to come in and give those costs. So I would prefer if he were to give those projected costs, because he has done the background into that and can do those comparisons.
But my question was, from your past experience with taking over, say a Midland or a Dryden or someplace like that, you would have been in this basic model of estimates for the first 3 years until you get a,
Always.
yes.
Yep.
And in the 4th year, 5th year, where have you seen those estimates? Have they been very close, or does it go up or down, or is it a variance?
Sorry, I can speak to that. So I mean, the concept for the first 3 years, it's a transition based on hours provided. Correct. As written in the contract. When you roll into the billing model, the costs could change Of course, I'm not in a position right now to give you any sort of projections on what that would look like, because that's based on calls for service activity, of course. Some municipalities have seen a drop in the costs. Some have seen it stabilize. Some have seen an increase in costs. Again, it's all based on that calls for service activity. The main concern I always like to at least, or main point I want to bring across is there's always I wouldn't say always, but there's often that a perception that if there's a drop in costs when you roll into the billing model, that equates to a loss or a reduction in service. That is not true whatsoever, because again, the billing model provides it's a separate cost methodology for recovering costs from municipalities. So, but we can't get into, in our experience, I can't get into specifics regarding specific municipalities. We also have information on our website that actually lays out of all the municipalities with police. If we have years of, and I think it goes back to 2015, of annual billing costs and annual cost recoveries for all municipalities police. So you can certainly go in and do that analysis if you see fit, but that is available to the public to review.
Okay, I will do that and see, from some of my experience, and check with my old friend up in Dryden, Craig Nuttall, who used to be the mayor up there, and see what the experience was there on their numbers that they have in Dryden, and or Midland or Orangeville as well too.
And your worship, sorry, just to interject as well, Wayne just recently transitioned to the billing model. West Nipissing recently transitioned to the billing model this year. So yeah, absolutely. Reaching out to those other municipalities that could provide some real world, I guess, experience or information with that.
Yeah, that's where I was looking with that one. That'd be good. Okay. Tom, you've got another question? Please go ahead.
Thank you, and I'll be very brief. Thank you, Mayor Eccles. And I think you just nailed exactly what I was after, is calls for service, and that's one of the things. I think the numbers that are presented to us, I don't think they're accurate. They're based on 2021, and again, calls for service is what drives the cost. And 2022, we know we've surpassed that, and that's just one thing. I just wanted to mention that. But the last thing that I wanted to bring is I've heard a little bit of discussion around this police station, and I'm a little confused why, we went out, we spoke with a designer architect, and the building that we had that we were looking to build was appropriate for our West Grey Police Services, current service that we have. And it met all the standards that were required for building such a building. What is the difference between what we're providing to our current service that you may need? Do you need a Taj Mahal? Like, do you need something spectacular? Or to me, we've met all those standards. I don't know why we would need to consider looking at a different building if this was to ever change going down the road. So if somebody could elaborate on that, I'm not sure. You have different building codes or something we're supposed to follow. Thank you.
Well, you don't need to follow OPP building protocol if you wish not to. But if you are choosing to ask us to come in to work with the building to see if it would meet our standards, then we're willing to do that. But we just have different standards, that's all. Neither is better or worse, it's just different. So if you want to work with our standards, that's fine, but you don't have to.
Okay, I just wanted to know you may have different standards. I was looking for, I was a little confused on that, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. If I could, from the chair, one last question. Earlier in your presentation, some of the statistics, Sergeant Witherow, the dispatch or call center, I think the number I recall there was 2.1 calls for service and 1 million calls dispatched.
Is this from the annual report you're pulling?
I believe it was, yes. Okay. It was early in your, that's why I missed it, because I got a couple of pages of notes here and I flipped back and went, that was one. It was 2.1 million calls into the dispatch, but 1 million calls for service dispatched. It just, there's a million in there that somewhere, and I think I know the answer, but I can see Inspector Richardson jumping to the microphone, so he's going to
I
say.
don't know if jumping's accurate, but moving forward anyways. Thank you for the question. What I can say is not every call to, and I think my policing partners in the room would agree that not every call to a communication center necessitates a call for service for an officer. Sometimes they're messages for officers, sometimes it's inquiries. We also have some efficiencies in diverting calls where officers don't have to attend certain calls, and those are handled over the phone, so those wouldn't be dispatched, and that's why the disparity in the numbers.
That was what I thought it was going to be, so thank you for clarifying that for me. It wasn't that a spouse was phoning and asking what somebody was bringing home for supper. Okay, good. Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Sorry, I do have one more question here that I missed. So in the report, there was something that was stated and I was curious about. It talks about growth rates. And it says that the growth rates used to calculate OPP costs are relatively high compared to West Grey. Can you just explain a little bit about what that's stating there? What is that meaning and how is that figured out?
Sorry, where are you referring? I'm sorry.
Well, it was
The
in one.
presentation?
No, it wasn't in the presentation. It was in one of the reports you gave, whether it was an annual or whether it was the proposal, but it talks about the growth rates being different that OPP used versus West Grey's growth rates. Can you elaborate on that?
For what, it was comparing. it
For
to
costing,
West
for
Grey?
costing, yes. For the
I'd have
overall
to see the
costing.
report. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's referring to. No,
No,
I
okay,
don't have that report in front of me. Where
all right, well, I mean.
Is it the annual report or the strategic plan or?
Well, part of it might have been having to do with salary, part of it had to do with overtime. So,
If the CAO, maybe, if you want to send that question to her and she can send it to me, I will. give
okay,
her a
I'll have to look back and find where it came from, but
Perfect, no
it
problem.
was in there somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions from council. The seats are hot, but you can get off of them now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your
everyone.
Worship.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Withrow and Inspector Richardson for the presentation. Greatly appreciated. It gives council a lot of information to be able to go through in the next few days and try and figure out where policing is going with West Grey. So thank you and have a great day. Yeah. I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute break and try to come back at 10 to 11. That'd be good. Okay, thank you very much. We shall return. Okay. Are you? Our streaming session there, Sheila. There we go. Okay. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. And we're ready for a presentation from the West Grey Police Service. I believe Chief Martin and Inspector White are going to lead us in this one. So, gentlemen, turn the floor. It's over to you. You can use the microphone, please. We'll be.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, Council, senior staff, other command officers from police services, people online. Thank you for the opportunity to present today on this exceptionally important topic. Before I begin, I would like to say one thing, and I would like to thank the members of the West Grey Police Service for the professional and dedication that they've shown to this community during this very difficult process they've been going through and the uncertainty. They have performed commendably and have served our community very well during this process, which has caused a portion of stress in their lives, given the fact that it is an upheaval of their entire careers. But thank you so much for what you do. We do appreciate it, and thank you to my membership. Moving on, Your Worship, we've heard a few times today the word amalgamation with our provincial policing partners that we're here. Amalgamation is a process of combining or uniting two entities. This is not an amalgamation. This is a replacement of the West Grey Police Service by the Ontario Provincial Police. If you have an amalgamation, you see one portion of the entity still exists. If we are taken over and policing duties are provided to the province, we will not exist and there'll be nothing left of our service. Second thing I have to ask, the West Grey Police Service, as I mentioned during council orientation, is not broken. We are not a broken service. We do not have the internal challenges. We do not have problems inside. Hopefully my presentation will talk about some of the misinformation that went on over the last year in our community that was presented by certain peoples, but we are not a broken entity. We serve our community very well, and we do provide adequate and effective policing for our town. The foundation of the West Grey Police Service is laying our commitment to our community policing. That was brought up when I first hired. You were the chair of the board then. There's been some other members of the Police Services Board here. But community policing was what was requested, and community policing is what we provide. We are your police service for your community. We are not an entity on ourselves. We represent the police service, and we work for council, we work for the Police Services Board, but we work for our community to make this a better place to live. We are, as a mission and vision statements claim, community partners. These are not simply words written on the side of our cars. It's not a neat slogan. It is a mindset for our organization that goes from the chief down to our special constables and our civilians. Everyone is a partner in policing within our organization. For my opinion, community policing is based on the 3 Ps: prevention, problem solving, and partnerships with the community. This mindset is not a one-size-fits-all policing strategy. It is a commitment by us to making our town better by working with our community to solve community problems in partnership with them. Our policing partner has presented that they align themselves with a county adaptation of community policing, which is not consistent with what the West Gray Police delivers and what the residents of West Gray appreciate and come to expect from our professional police service. We are an engaged professional police service that strives to ensure the success of our community. You can't have a successful community where people want to live, work, and play without an engaged, active police service that represents the needs of the town. The slides have already started. I apologize. Our mission statement is very easy, and so is our vision statement: to be the best community-oriented police service in this province. We are well on our way to that. Our membership is 22 sworn members. I am the chief of police. My inspector of operations, Jeremy White, is with me. Our 22 members serve well. They serve our community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a visible presence in the town, not coming from somewhere else, not being engaged somewhere else. They are your police officers. Click, sorry. How big are we? 875 square kilometers of land, lots of roadways. We have 2 stations. We've talked about the station. I'm not getting into our facilities during this conversation because it's not about our facilities, it's about keeping our own town police. We have 1 station in the town of Durham, 1 satellite office in the town of Ayton, 3 townships that were amalgamated into 1 municipality in the early 2000s, and a population that's a little bit low. I understand we're now at 13,600 and change. West Gray came into existence in 2000s, early through forced amalgamations from our government. Municipal policing has existed in this municipality since 1892 with the former town of Durham Police. We are older than our Ontario Provincial Police partners. We have been in existence. The former town of Durham Police was the benchmark that helped set up the West Gray Police when we took it over. So municipal policing has been existing in this community for 130 years. Our calls for service, as was pointed out by the deputy mayor, yes, our calls are up. We are now, for the first time, broke 5,000 calls for service. In 2022, 374 criminal charges were laid, 770 hours and a quarter hours of foot patrol were done in our municipality, in our conservation areas, in our schools, in our downtown cores, in areas of concern that we work with the town and our police services board and council to determine which ones are and which ones are the priorities to move forward. 335 motor vehicle collisions were investigated, and we wrote over 1,000 provincial offenses notice. We're a busy police service, very busy. What we can provide, click. I'll just keep saying click. What do we have? We are not a small bedroom community. We have focused a considerable amount of money over the last 6 years in training for the whens, not the ifs. We look at our past years to determine what our training needs are. We look at our community needs to determine what our training needs are, and we base our training on that. We are not a small town that needs help. We talk about specialized services. Both of my homicide detectives are present today. We do have homicide officers. We trained them before our homicide last year. So we were ready for those problems as they come up. We have a training unit. He is present as well. Detective Constable Sanderson runs our training office and puts forward our up-to-date training and new training that we do every year. We are part of the anti-terrorism section. We have representation on that. We have a media relations officer, elder abuse, criminal investigations, domestic violence, anything that a large municipal police services has, we have. We just deploy it differently. We don't have specialized sections. Our frontline members are our generalists who do these investigations. And I have to say our frontline members are all our community well-being officers who engage in the community and do the community service work for the town. Proceed. The rest of ours, our school resource programs we have, our school officer is here as well. We will discuss our school programs a little further, our crime prevention and our community engagement programs. But we have what we need to provide effective and adequate policing for the town, and we provide effective and adequate policing for our town. Our ministry inspections over the last 6 years, we have passed every one of them. I'm very happy to report on some of our audits, and particularly the Ontario Sex Offender Registry, we consistently reach 100% compliance. And thank you to that officer who does it, because he is here as well. Sorry, I keep telling Whitey to move the slides ahead. He's got them going here. The organizational pillars of our service. What makes us work and what is our mindset set to? Community is number one. It has to be number one. We are funded out of the community tax dollars. We don't keep coming back. We work within our budget with what we have and try to keep our costs at a minimum and increases at a minimum. Superior quality service, employee wellness, because our employees are everything. Without our engaged employees, we would not have such a great police service. And continuous service improvement. Move on. Next. This is the Ontario Community Policing Model, is what we base all of our community programs on and all of our engagement models moving forward with our programs. Everything is based on this, and at the forefront of this is community. Click. What do we do? Unfortunately, this is the only picture we had available I could use. I apologize for the ugly officer in the picture, but it is what it is. We have a very active auxiliary program. As reported last time, our auxiliary members donated 585.5 hours to community events in our town. These are people that represent the Westbury Police who are not sworn members, who give their own time to our community, not our county, our community. We do community presentations on drugs, internet safety, bullying, elder abuse prevention, fraud. We're part of Crime Stoppers. We're part of Project Lifesaver. We have a vulnerable person registry. We sit on a number of leadership tables at the county level. We've sat on victim services, which has recently passed, so I'm no longer the chair of victim services. Our ride programs are run around year round, all year long. Proceed. I am not going to go through all of our community programs. The incredibly handsome man in the middle is myself doing the literacy program at the library. But we are engaged, and we are engaged with the other services in the town. We are part of the library's literacy program. We do read to people under 5 because we want that recognition that the police are your friend and they are part of your town. Next. This is not an all-encompassing list, but it is what we do for our community. And these are not staffed by members on duty. A lot of these events are done by our members on their own time off duty. And like I said earlier, all of our members are community safety and well-being officers, not one individual appointed. It is a community focus that has spread throughout our organization and makes us the service that we are today. Next. Youth programs. There's been a lot of discussion about our youth programs. We do a very good job with our youth programs. I consider our youth programs part of our crime prevention initiatives because we are reaching those children before they hit high school, when it is still time to make an effect and have a positive influence on them. Our school resource officer takes care of a lot of the school presentations and the outreach for our children's programs, does an outstanding job. His relationships with our schools and our town are the envy of other police services. When you have children asking for the school resource officer to solve family problems because there is not a strong male presence in the community that supports them, but our officer will, that is a positive win. And I cannot stress how proud I am of the work that our members do in our schools. Next. You can just click right through these. The Ontario Police Services Act sets out the regulations and adequacy standards for policing. There are a number of pillars: crime prevention, law enforcement, assistance to victims, public order maintenance, emergency response, and administrative duties. We are compliant with all of these under Regulation 3 for 99 for the Ontario Police Services Act. We are audited. Like I said, we have never had a failing grade on any of our audits. We've always scored higher than the provincial average, with a number of our audits coming back with 100% compliance. That is the work we do, and that is the work we continue to do every day. Our goal is to meet this and ensure that our community is safe and that we provide adequate and effective policing. We've been criticized for providing more than adequate and effective policing, which I think is a ridiculous comment to have been made. If you have something that works within their budget that provides better than adequate service, I think that is a win, and it's not something to criticize. It's called fiscal management and employee management to make things better for our town. Next, please. Our platoon schedule. We have 3 patrol zones, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week coverage, and we have a continuous presence in our town. The earlier comments were that we have left our jurisdiction to assist our municipal and provincial policing partners. We will never leave a police officer in dire needs when he needs help. We will certainly respond, but there will always be someone in our municipality policing it to ensure that our citizens are protected and our citizens are taken care of. Next. Ongoing recertification training. We train all the time. Training is the core of what we do because it makes us better at our jobs. It makes us better prepared for those emergencies that come up. I'm not going to read the entire thing. It is exactly the same what the OPP slide basically presented, except we do our firearms twice a year rather than once to make sure that our members remain very proficient with their weapons. And we also cover ministry changes, legal policies, updates all the time to make sure our members have the knowledge to their jobs effectively and to avoid any civil problems that may result from them not being educated in what the new and upcoming law has become. Next, please. Our shared services. We have a signed shared services agreement with our other municipal policing partners in Grey and Bruce counties. Saugeen Shores, Hanover, and Owen Sound Police have been fantastic policing partners for us, and we rely on them a lot to assist us with training and other issues. We've also included the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry as they provide canine responsibilities to us and also give us a marine presence on our many waterways without having us to incur the cost of having a boat, and these are provided free to us. We have used Saugeen Shores in particular. They have a canine unit and they've used our evaluating officer drug impairment. There's no cost to it, but it does allow us to share resources, allows us to focus our training on the needs of our communities and make sure that we all have access to the widest band of service we can give to our town. Give us some flexibility in meeting demands because we can rely on them for extra staffing if it's needed. We talk about economies of scale. We can save money in training because if I know that one of our neighboring police services have this and it's available to us, there is no need for us to duplicate it in our own municipality if we're able to use it freely and whenever we need it. We also have the agreement that if there is a large incident in our town, i.e. our local protest that we had, where Owen Sound did provide us with 2 members to assist us, we are able to rely on those to reduce our overtime, increase our police presence, and rely on our policing partners to assist us. Policing is a team effort. As the OPP said, and I'll reiterate it, the color of the stripe on your pants doesn't matter. We are all going to work to make sure that our community first, our county next, and our province is the safest it can possibly be. Next, please. What's available through our shared services agreement? I'm not going to read it and bore everyone. There's a lot there. Crime analysis, canine units, we can working on a high-risk entry team, search specialists for those people, hate crime specialists. We have our own hate crime investigator, the other services do. So we're able to draw on these to assist us to get our mandate done of providing effective and adequate policing for our community. Next, please. We do work closely with our OPP partners under our current Section 7 agreement, soon to move to a Section 14 agreement. If we were to call for those specialized services, and it was mentioned earlier, if there's something we can't handle, the only incidents we rely on them regularly for is collision reconstruction because it is a very expensive program, and for underwater recovery because we cannot afford to have our own dive team because insurance and costs. These are provided at no cost to us. But as the OPP said, when they call us for help, we go and assist them outside of our municipality. We do not cost recover for those services as well. It is a two-way street. There has been some talk of down the road that the OPP are going to start billing for this. that is fine, but the OPP, if they do decide to start to bill this through the Solicitor General, have to understand it's a two-way street, and we will be rebilling them. And we provide more coverage to them than they provide to us. In the legislation, it's been talked about since 1990 with this threat, and we understand there is no changes under the Comprehensive Police Services Act, which will be coming out sometime in 23, 24, 25, 26. We're not sure. That those costs are not going to be put onto the police services because every town loses money to the OPP through our tax base. We pay our provincial taxes, which the $3.7 billion OPP budget is funded out of. Next, please. What we have, administrative support services. This is our records management person. We have one. She does an outstanding job for us. Staffing and recruitment is the inspector of operations role. We do not have a problem with recruitment. We actually have a waiting list. There was some talk during the election that people don't want to work for us. We have a waiting list of experience and recruits on file that we can draw from. Our hiring is done a bit differently than some of the larger services that draw from the whole province. We hire from West Grey, then we hire from Grey County, and then we hire from Western Ontario. We try to keep our members local. I do believe we have all but one member who lives within 30 minutes of our municipality. So our all hands on deck scenario where we have a homicide like we did last year, an SIU investigation involving a serious incident, we're able to call those people in and have a response very quickly to our station rather than trying to find people who are based everywhere and all over the place, not living within our municipality. Next, please. Our civilian staff, we do have two. Our records manager and our special constable case manager out of the courthouse. Our case manager is shared with 3 other services, which reduce the cost for us, but it works out very well because our other 2 municipal partners, Hanover Police Service and Saugeen Shores Police Service, get the benefit of having an employee at the courthouse. This has been in place for a number of years. It works very well for us, and we would like to continue it into the future. But in terms of our civilian staff, for record checks in particular, our record checks are done at the station within 15 minutes. The OPP have a 6-week waiting time and everything is done electronically. It's all about customer service. It's about greeting the people at the door, getting them in and out, and providing a superior quality of service to the citizens of our municipality. Sorry, next. Our employees are our biggest asset. 91% of our budget goes to our employees, which is the standard for most police services. We do not have any members off on WSIB or OSI. We are one of the few services that have all of our members in a full complement on staff with no one off on any type of mental health or physical injury leave. It took some time to get it through. But as our investment into our people, we train them on mental health first aid. We have a peer support team, the Road to Rental Readiness. We do have a trained reintegration officer to help members who return to work after a traumatic incident, return to the workplace in a wholesome and healthy manner. And we have a service contracted psychotherapist to assist our members. The benefit of that is they assist our membership, they assist the significant others, and they'll talk to the families and children of our members because we understand that policing can be at times a very traumatic episode. And we want to make sure that our members walk out the door after 30 years of service to West Grey Police as healthy and as happy as they can and can move into their next phase of their lives as a healthy individual. Next, please. Our continuous service improvement, it's been mentioned before. We can't sit on our heels and look at, we've done this in the past and this is the only way to go. We have to look at what we do as an organization. 1, to keep our costs down. 2, to be able to respond to any concerns the community has in an effective manner. And we have to look at the organizational needs. What do we need? How can we do this? How can we modernize our operations to make us the best police service and the best policing option for the town, and to make sure that the needs are met and we continue to provide adequate and effective policing. Ongoing policy and procedure reviews to make sure we're current. We did a massive overhaul of our procedures and policies 2 years ago and had them all rewritten to make sure that they're compliant. We are now part of a working group with other Gray Bruce and Strathroy Caradoc Police Service to make sure that our policies and procedures are current and up to date. We did this in a joint partnership to save money rather than having all four of us rewriting policies. We can see some economy of scale by sharing it and by having the Gray Bruce Police Services have very similar policies and procedures. It enhances our operational readiness if we're required to go leave or they're required to come help us. We are also part of the Provincial Police Purchasing Group, take advantage of deals and contracts by other large police services where we see savings in our everyday items such as jackets, pants, ammunition, items like that. Our shared resource agreement, I will not beat the death, we have it, and our ongoing technology improvements. We're entering into the digital evidence management system, which will see us save money and be able to enhance our communications back and forth to our court operations. And starting in 2 weeks, we'll be moving into electronic MVC forms for our people. Simply, it makes for an easier transfer than mailing paper documents, and it's simply email into the ministry system to upload all of our stuff in a more timely fashion and save our membership time by doing it on a computer rather than having to write it on a long form. Next. Community satisfaction is part of our improvement. Our last community survey in 2022, 86% of our community had a positive view of this police service. I'm happy with that number, but I'm not satisfied by that number. We will continue to work on that number and we will continue to work on our community satisfaction to try to make that higher. 86% is good, 100% is perfect. We will continue to service our town and try to get that up. And 90% said our officers act in a professional manner and they show concern for the issues that they're called for. One of the most important things for policing is to have the people who we serve realize that our officers care about them. They care about the town. They coach hockey, they coach baseball, they coach soccer, we do foot patrols. We are out and about. There was a comment earlier during the OPP about the West Grey Police not being a responsive police service. I disagree great with that comment. I think we are. The police service and the police board are two separate entities. This week alone, we were able to respond to a concern from a council member, Public Works, and a bylaw question at the same time. And we were able to resolve all three of those issues in the same day, simply because they were able to pick up a phone and call me. I'm there 100% of the time, not 17% of the time, or call the inspector who's there 100% of the time, not 34% of the time, and answer those questions because we understand how the town works. We understand the area we work in. We're not imported police. We were, well, a lot of us, well, not me, but some of my members were born here. They're third generations here. They understand the town, and that's what we want as a police service because we are community partners. Next. If it works, if there's a problem, Sheila, it's okay. I can start a puppet show up here or something.
We are a community-focused organization that focuses education and community involvement. We're looking for people who are educated with work experience and practical life experience, and those people that want to put back into the community they work with.
I really want to be involved with the community. I want my community that I live in to be safe. I live in the area, and I find that policing is the most interesting job you can have. It's different every day. You're never bored. It's exciting. Everything you put into policing, you'll get out of policing. So the more you put in, the better it is for your career. Every day I love my job, so no looking back.
Being out in the community and helping people out, making a difference, working with the kids one-on-one, helping someone in a crisis situation. I really shine in that light. And if I can make a difference with people, that's definitely what I'm here to do.
You know, if you're in a bigger police service, you'll have your frontline officers and then all your specialty units that get delegated specific tasks. Here, we wear all the hats. So we'll do all kinds of investigations, and what that does is make a better officer.
You get in, everybody starts at the same level, and then you can kind of decide where you want to go. You don't always have to just stay in patrol. You don't know what you're getting into. You get that call, you get some information, you might think in your head, I'm going into this, and then all of a sudden it's something different, and you have to think on the fly.
Growing up in a small town, I have always loved being out with the people and helping people as much as I possibly can. Being in this uniform and being with the service gives me that extra chance to be involved.
An ideal recruit is going to be from the area. We try to recruit locally, so we have that pool of people who understand the community's concerns and are vested in their community. They want to be part of the community. Why would they choose to come to West Grey? We are one of the best kept hidden secrets in all of Ontario, and this is one of the best places in Ontario to live, work, and play.
Town, and I forgot to turn my mic on. I apologize. We are a partner in the town. We work within our restraints of our budget. For everyone's information, our budget this year proposed, it has not been approved, is $4,101,203. The OPP are 5.1 estimated. Our budget is what we work in. We have been fortunate enough to find fiscal responsibilities and return to surplus to the town every year that I have been in charge and in command of this service. That is simply by finding ways of efficiencies and keeping things in check and having local accountability, because we are accountable to our council, we are accountable to our community, and most particular, we are accountable to our ratepayers because they fund us to keep doing the operations that we do. In terms of West Grey Police Service, if you look at the numbers over the last years, our clearance rates have improved. We do have an active CIB office that was instituted with two of our staff members. They do an incredible job responding to those complex and complicated calls that require some investigation, some further work to deal with community concerns and community problems. But our clearance rates are above the provincial average for violent and non-violent crimes and improving. Our crime severity index, which means how bad is crime, dropped by 13% last year. Our violent crime dropped 16.5%. Non-violent crime saw a drop of 11%. Is it perfect? No, but it's a work in progress. And we keep putting those resources into our police service to fight those problems and continue to see these decreases to make this the most safe community in the province of Ontario, if not the country itself. Why keep the West Grey Police Service? In my respectful opinion, you have one of the best police services in the province. No offense to Chief Zettel, who is here as well. We work very hard. We have, our oath means something to us. We have a number of officers who are locally born and bred and have an invested interest in this town. I love West Grey Police. I love the West Grey area. I've been a police officer 34 years. I've been chief here for 6. I chose to come here, and my direction when it came from the board was to make it a community-based police service and make it the best community-based police service. And that mission is what we continue to work and strive towards every day. Advantage is keeping us. We're accountable to our community. We're accountable to council. You have immediate access to specialized services. Like I said, we have 22 members, including myself and the inspector. We have 2 members trained in homicides. We have elder abuse investigations, which we realize we're going to need with the redevelopment of the Rockwood Terrace. because those kind of problems will come with that campus of care. And we need to be able to deal with those when they arrive. So we are planning for the future. We always look at our training and planning with the future as our goal of where we want to be, not where we are now. We deliver a wide range of community programs. Like I said earlier, all of our members are community officers. We looked around and the members that are here, every one of them have been to community events on their time off for the betterment of our town. Local policing priorities are determined. We don't answer to London. We do not answer to Aurelia. We answer to 402-813 Gray Road 4, where council is based out of, and we are accountable to them to help us meet the community needs. And we are policing for our municipality by your community police service. To quote one of my members, we are the right choice for West Gray and the right police service for West Gray. That's all that I have. Subject to any questions from yourself, your worship, or any other member of council who is present today.
Thank you, Chief Martin, and I'll ask you to turn your mic off. You take a breath. That's why I asked you to turn your mic off. Any council members have any questions for Chief Martin or Inspector White? Councillor Hutchison, Doug.
Thank you for your presentation. I can see from your presentation that you keep our police force to heart and have a great service, I think. But we have to look at some particulars here. So we're analyzing and make comparisons and we'll make a decision. So the question I have is in the report between the OPP and West Gray, there's quite a significant difference in cost per household for policing. Can you explain why that is such a difference? Overall, it doesn't, it varies. And again, it's all a lot of its estimates, but there seems to be quite a difference in the police cost per household. Is there something different there that they're analyzing versus what you're analyzing?
What we analyze is, again, my apologies for the mic. What we analyze is we are here. We're here, we're doing the job. We are not having numbers that appear saying we have 20 officers working, but they could be deployed anywhere else. We are in the town. We do not have the benefit of breaking numbers down and spreading them out over the entire province. And we are focused as a small municipality. We don't have the advantage of saying all of Gray County breaks down to be this. We break down to West Gray, and West Gray is our focus. We are not dealing with everyone's going to pay, but we can break the cost down over an entire Western region or the Gray County cost-wise looking that way. I think that explains some of the breakdown, but I do believe that MMP would be probably better suited to try to answer those questions about why the OPP, because I don't have access to what they shared with our consultants about the cost per household. But that's the way I would explain it, Councillor Hutchison.
Okay. And I did ask a question previously, but I guess maybe I'll ask you. In the OPP report, it talks about pension divestment. So if we were to switch from OPP to OPP from West Gray, what does that look like, pension divestment? Can you explain that a little bit?
The way it's explained to me many times is you will have to bring, when they transfer it over to the OPP, you'll either have to top up what the people would have been paying into their pensions to make them comparable to OPP pensions. There's some similarities with the OMERS pension and the Ontario provincial pension, but their pension is more expensive than ours. So there'll be some costs associated with bringing all of our members who decide to go to the OPP. And we did have a recent discussion with the association. They had a meeting and it was unanimous that 100% of our members wanted to stay with West Gray Police. But those divestment costs, severance costs will all be borne by the municipality depending on the numbers who decide to apply and the numbers that are accepted, because all of our members would have to reapply like recruits to go to the Ontario Provincial Police. And in my respectful opinion, when you have members that have 25 years of great service to a community and have no discipline and have been doing an exceptional job, it does not make much sense for me to have them reapply for a job they've been doing for 20 years with distinction and professionalism. But that is an OPP decision, not mine. But all of those associated costs, disposal of assets, they will not take any of our equipment. I don't know why. We drive the same cars, we use the same workstations, we use the same patrol rifles. Gun belts and everything would have to be disposed of by the director of finance at a loss usually when they go. But all of that would have to be replaced as part of your initial costs. And you would have to pay to make sure that their pensions are comparable for the time served with the OPP as they would have with West Gray. So it would be a cost to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Councillor Shea, Jeff?
I sort of feel like I have a responsibility to speak up here. I was one of the councillors that voted to initiate an OPP costing, the only one from this current council. And so what I would like to discuss, thank you for your presentation, Chief, and thank you for everyone for attending. I will say that, you know, I've lived here for, I don't know, 30 years, something like that. And I've only interacted with the West Gray Police 3 times, and they were all in the last 6 months. And I had fantastic interactions in each of those cases. So I'm very pleased with the service that we're getting. I'm very impressed with the officers and the whole organization. So just to make it clear that I'm not anti-West Gray Police by any means. In your presentation, you delivered a number of documents to us. One was a new business plan. Thank you for that. I also reviewed the last business plan. And in the last business plan, there was no mention of any need for growth of the West Gray Police Force. And yet, in the last term of council, which that business plan mostly covered, the budget went from around $3 million to around $4 million. And there was growth of several officers added. I'm concerned that that wasn't identified as a likelihood or a need in the last business plan. We don't see any growth identified in the current business plan or expansion of the force this time either. And I'm concerned that we're going to see continued growth at rates like that into the future. There's nothing to indicate that we have reached the right size according to your opinion. So I was concerned by this unprojected rapid budgetary growth over the last 3 or 4 years. And that's what triggered me to want to look at an alternative. I thought if we're going to continue to grow at this speed, we're going to be in real trouble real fast. So I wonder if you could address the growth that happened in the last 3 or 4 years, how that was not identified in the business plan, and what growth you're anticipating in the next 3 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the business plan did not detail growth into our organization, and we did grow by 3 members. When we look at our calls for service, they've increased between 3 to 5% every year. There was between 2016 and the last census, there was a 5% growth within our community. Our calls are getting more complicated. Our calls are getting more violent. We would never have considered that we would have a homicide in the summer or an aggravated assault on the main street, or get involved into things. We've done a number of projects dealing with drug trafficking and the substance coming into our community, which require resources, which requires specialized resources, which we now have. We have a CIB unit, which does a very good job and deals with those. And we have the ability to have trained officers that we can draw on to do those specialized investigations and take them out. Before, we hadn't grown since 2015. We'd had no growth. We've been stagnant. We're seeing the calls for coming. And when we talked about it, we saw our community saying, we want visibility. We can't provide visibility if we don't have enough people working and the cars out on the road. So we did grow by 3 members. We hired recruits and brought them on board. They've done a fantastic job for us. It gives us a little bit more play with the new generation of officers coming up as we were getting very stagnant with not growing for a period of time. That's the reason for the growth, was the increase of calls, the increase of severity calls, what the community was asking for, to see our officers on patrol, either be on foot or in our vehicles. In terms of growth that's projected, there was some innuendos at the last election saying we wanted 8 new members. We will have to continuously look at it. I'm not asking for any new members this year. I do not anticipate asking for any new members next year, but it will be something that we'll have to continue monitoring as our developments grow to completion. We know that Durham has a number of houses coming up on the ends. What is that going to bring in terms of policing costs? We don't know. We don't know how that will affect our town and calls for service. But our growth needs to be slow and steady and keep up with the town so we can provide adequate and effective policing. So when an officer is called, we're not seeing the response being as in some major Ontario services being a day and a half or 2 days. We need to look at how can we get the calls? How do we service them? How does it affect our response times? How does it affect our community perceptions? Because the easiest way to lose community trust in a police service is when they call for you, you don't get there in a reasonable amount of time. I'm not saying we have to be there in 30 seconds, but 2 days is too long for people to wait for a call for service, especially because when they call the police, they've usually exhausted every single other avenue and it's a last resort for them. And most of the times we get calls for service, people describe it as the worst day of the life because they had to call the police. Having the worst day of your life and then extending it by a day while you're waiting for response times is not adequate and effective policing. It is policing when we get there sometimes, and we don't want to get into that. But our projected growth, I will caveat, I can't predict what could happen next year. And if we have a massive boom in West Grey, which we would certainly love because it would certainly bring into the tax base and everything else. But we're not predicting any significant growth or any growth, at least for the next 2 or 3 years. And we'll have to reassess that with the Police Services Board and Council going forward, depending on what our analysis of the needs going forward for this year, next year, and next year. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, for the first time, we surpassed 5,000 calls in our municipality. And we just had a meeting with Owen Sound, who provides our dispatch contracts, and our calls for service are up already. And we're only halfway through January of 2023. I hope that answers your question somewhat, Councillor Scheck.
Somewhat, and I do think we should leave innuendo out of this discussion, Chief, if you don't mind. I thought you said in your presentation that violent crimes were down this year. You just said that violent crimes were up, and that was one of the reasons for the growth.
When we look at our numbers over the past years, it wasn't the year prior, but the year previous, we had some significant events, which caused us grief as an organization because we were not seeing the level of violence. And as our GTA services are funded with more anti-gang funding and more proactive measures to deal with the gang problems, we're seeing the spillover into smaller rural areas. And we are transit route because we have Highway 6 that goes through, Highway 4 that goes through. So we are an access route for people coming up from the larger metropolitan areas south of us into our area and into Grey County itself.
Thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Noon. Joyce?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and thank you today for your presentation. A lot of more things that I wasn't aware that you provide, and it was really good information. With the growth, how many officers currently would patrol per day with the additional 3 staff that you had mentioned that have increased over the last couple of years? Or does this additional staff hired, are they like doing specific jobs that wouldn't necessarily be out and patrolling? So long and short, like on an average, like how many officers?
The new ones, sorry, I didn't cut you off. The new ones are supplement our general patrol. Our 2 specialists, Constable Sanderson was moved off general patrol, so his position was replaced. And those last 2 recruits were hired for growth positions for us to help us keep up with the calls for service as we see the calls for service go up. But they're not doing extra things. Our 2 CIB officers, our detective sergeant is a very tenured, experienced officer, as is Detective Constable Sanderson. So they handle our complex cases, but the rest of them, our membership are assigned to general patrol. but they have other duties. As we mentioned, our school liaison officer is also a general duties officer, so he does his school patrol along with his other duties. We are hate crime investigator, our elder abuse investigator, all of those are still general patrol officers with the specialty hat that they wear doing whatever specialties they are interested in to keep their careers exciting and moving forward.
Thank you. So again, the number, like how many on an average per day would officers be out?
I think last week we had 8 available to go on the road because when you talk about deployable, I wear a uniform. I am still certified in all of my equipment stuff. So I have been on the road. The inspector has been on the road. Our detectives have been on the road. So we have 3 working at a time. We talked about the 3 zones. So we have 3 coverage, plus a supervisor, plus those floaters or deployable floaters, myself and the inspector and our CIB officers that are available working days who could go out. But 3 is the minimum staffing we have.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Hutchison, Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and through you to the chief. Chief, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know how many calls you actually had in 2021 versus 2022? And if you don't have that, I respectfully understand.
Give me a second. Get that number. Inspector White is just looking the number up for you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you. And I do want to say thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you to obviously yourself and all your officers. You do an excellent job in West Grey, and I could see through your presentation you're very passionate about your position here with West Grey. I think, just my understanding is West Grey's in a pretty good place right now for growth, because I've heard some discussion on growth, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to know those numbers. I know with opioid and mental health issues that we're all experiencing in all municipalities across the country, I would say probably across the globe. The calls are a lot more detailed, and I could see where we did need to do some enhancements, because it's things that are happening, and I think it's going to continue that way. I don't see life getting much easier, just with coming out of COVID and just the way the world is right now. But just the curiosity on those calls there, and I think I can understand. We had a hiring freeze basically with you for 2015, and we did have to put that complement in. And as far as growth down the road, I think from just my understanding, we may just be at a good balance now of officers versus the general population. If you could speak to that too, please.
I certainly hope there was not a question in there because I was looking for numbers.
Well, Chief, real quick, the number of officers we have, active officers, which I know everyone's active, versus our population, we're at a balance right now, a suitable number, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, in my opinion, we're at a suitable number, and I'm not projecting any increases for at least 2 years, given the staff we have. Depending any crisis or significant change in the circumstances we face as an agency and as a community.
Right, thank you. So if you don't have those numbers, you can send them to me later. I'm quite curious, because I think we are up substantial, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on our current structure here. And I do see down the road you're going to have some succession planning, because we do have some. Retirement's probably coming up within the next 5 to 8 years, so I think it's very important the municipality knows that there will be a little bit of growth, but that's more of a succession planning. So I think that's something we all have to be aware of, and it might be a 1 year. It takes a year to get somebody in the system. So if you're fairly confident, we don't control the population. Obviously we want to expand. So if you're confident we're in pretty good shape right now, then I'm good with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just to ask comment, you did mention succession planning. We are already beginning our succession planning for some of our membership as we get older, including myself with 34 years. Our succession planning started when we appointed our inspector to keep the organization moving on. And then if we do lose people and move on, it is a seamless organization and will not have any effect on our business continuity and the service we provide to our community.
Thank you for that response, and I think that's a wonderful plan to have in place. That's all, Mayor Eccles. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Townsend, Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I guess, more of a comment or a bit of a question in here too. I would believe it's safe to say over the course of the last 10 years or so, policing has changed in this part of Ontario. You're seeing, as you say, more with the focus being put on downtown Toronto and guns and gangs and all that. It's pushing that element up Highway 6. We are a major corridor into Owen Sound, which has problems also. And it's good that we have a progressive force that has kept on top of all those issues, has the expertise to do things in-house. And as a municipality, I think we're almost, from what we're hearing and seeing from presentations from the OPP and other municipalities, that almost instead of us inviting them in to bid on our service, we should be going back out and looking at helping our neighboring municipalities, should they be looking to do a costing and be looking for a police service and build on what we have, because the force we have here does an excellent job. Thank you.
To answer your question, policing changes every day. Trends come up, events happen south of the border, events happen overseas, events happen in our own country that we have to adapt to. We look at the needs of the community, but policing changes constantly, and we adapt to change it. We project as best we can with the hopes that we are on the right track. We do assess our position and where we're going and try to keep it moving forward, but policing is changing. In terms of your costing, that is Council Police Service Board decision, not operational in terms of costing other areas. I'm not going to comment on that. I am focused on our town and our community and making sure that we provide adequate and effective policing to make this the safest community it can possibly be. So the costing component, I won't comment on in any way, shape, or form over the future of policing in terms of what we do, or if we grow or don't grow or whatever. That's outside my realm. That is up to councils to discuss and talk about, to bring forward. But policing is changing. The benefit we have is we have a resilient police service that can adapt to change, because we have invested the time to give the people the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do that adaptability and move forward as an organization professionally, competently, and with a path laid out to provide the best policing services we can. Just to go back to the Deputy Mayor, Inspector White found it. Last year's calls for service were 4,246. Last year's calls for service were 5,139. So we are busy.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Shea, once more. Jeff?
Thanks. Just a clarification there based on Councillor Townsend's comment about growth to neighboring communities. And you were saying, Chief, that would be at Council's direction. The proposal that we made to Chatsworth, was that at Council's direction?
That was proposed by Chatsworth Council. It was brought to our council. It was then brought to our Police Services Board, who said they would like the costing prepared. We prepared the costing, and it was presented to Chatsworth Council.
So it was at West Grey Council.
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah,
I wasn't here then, so.
we don't shop around our prices. Our focus is our community. If other service agent or other communities wish to, then they have to go through their own council to our council and through the chain of command for my job. And I take direction from the Police Services Board.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hutchison, once more. Doug?
Yeah, just one more question, and maybe a comment in there too. I think it was in the police survey that you did that, or somewhere I read a comment about, well, I don't really see, I live in the country and I don't really see the police on my road much at all. So whether it's West Grey or OPP, I don't think it really matters other than they're looking maybe at the dollars. So my comment, my thoughts are, it's sort of the nature of the beast in terms, if you live in the country, you're probably not going to see a police car go down your road every day, given the number of kilometers that we have in our municipality. And we tend to have majority of our crime in our urban centers, I believe. So yeah, I just want maybe your thoughts on that in terms of, you know, how visible can you be in the country, and if, you know, whether OPP would be any more visible than our West Grey people on the many side roads that we have out there. Thank you.
We've heard the same complaint that we're never around. We do analysis of where our people patrol. The OPP talked about their GPS, the latest and greatest. We've had GPS on our vehicles for 4 years. So we've had it for a while, so we can track where our members are, and we use that data to make sure that we're patrolling equally. A lot of people think we're only in Durham, we're only in Ayton, we're only in Newstead. We're not. A lot of time is spent on those back roads, but the people that say, we never see the police car, okay, do you sit and stare at the road 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and waiting patiently for the police car to go by? It's a matter of perception. We're we're the largest municipality in Grey County. It presents challenges. Hanover visibility is good because they do 7 square kilometers. So you can see them going around the roads. We do direct our members, and our members do patrol equally. In terms of crime being urban-based centric, I would disagree with that. We see a spattering of crime trends all over the place. It's a lot easier for people to commit a crime in a rural area where there's no one around than it is in our urban areas. But I don't have the exact breakdown of urban versus rural. We don't keep those statistics simply because we keep statistics on the whole town. But the visibility is a challenge. It is part of why we did bring in the 3 extra new people to increase our visibility, because the town wants it. They want to see the police walking around. They want to see them. But our patrolling and the way we patrol is set up so we try to evenly base our rural presence as well. Elmwood gets foot patrol exactly the same way as Durham does. Crawford had foot patrol. I don't know how far the officer actually walked when he does the Crawford foot patrol, but he still does it. And I should mention that the fish and chips are there, so perhaps it's a fish and chips kind of draw. But those communities, we've seen them where they've done foot patrol in Doorknob on the half that we police. Simply because it is a small town and they deserve the same level of policing and the same level of visibility as the people who live in the urban centers. So we do try to balance that out. The challenge is people aren't home. We patrol during the day, we patrol at night. Unless you're monitoring the times we go down, some people will always say we never see the police. Will it be better with the OPP? I won't comment on if I think it'll be better, but they are a very large organization. They are strapped for staffing. I don't think the visibility would improve if we were to switch your policing providers. I think the visibility would get worse because if you're running with short staffed and you don't have staff, foot patrol is important to do, but if you're running call to call and you're running from Tobermory to Southgate and then Southgate to Wyerton, you're not going to have time for the proactive foot patrol. You're simply going to be a reactive service. And having a reactive service is not meeting the community needs, in my opinion. You have to be proactive and deal with those community challenges, no matter how trivial we think they are to someone, they're important, and we have to deal with them effectively. That's why we need that reactive time as well. And I don't think the visibility issue would improve with the Ontario Provincial Police patrolling West Grey. I think it would actually get worse.
Thank you for that clarification.
Anything else? No? Just if you could either to the inspector or yourself, chief. How many officers, how many full-time equivalents does it take to put an officer on patrol 24/7?
I apologize for not using the mic again. 4.7 members is the base that we were able to realize a number of years ago when we did Chatsworth costing. That was from the Ministry of the Solicitor General's office and some of the larger police services and how they staff their cars. But to have one car out there 24 hours a day with leave and training and everything else and coverage, you need 4.7 police officers.
And to be able to cover off holidays and, as you said, leave and all of that 24/7. 5 officers to cover that.
Correct.
That on a shift. I would ask the council members when they're looking at that, that in the OPP chart, and I apologize to any of the OPP presenters that are out there, I should have asked this earlier. They said that we were going to have 8 regions or 8 zones that the OPP were going to cover. And they have 4 platoons in Grey and Bruce. So I'm not a mathematical genius like our director of finance over here is. She knows how to juggle numbers, but 4 divided in 8 means you've got 2 of those zones are going to be covered by 1 officer on a shift. So right now, West Grey has 3 zones. We have 3 officers. I guess this is going back to your point and something towards what Councillor Hutchison was saying. If you have 1 officer that's covering Southgate and West Grey, I believe that the chief was correct in telling you that the coverage is going to be very limited. The fact that we have 3, and some people are saying we don't see out of 3 officers in West Grey, we don't see the individual. Just a point that was taken. Okay. If there's no other questions at this point in time, I see it is noon. We've got to be getting close to lunch. We've already given the shutout. I think it's Tuesday. Dave and Donna may be open at Crawford if you want fish and chips. We're getting close to that time, but we have a little bit more business. If there's no other questions for the chief, thank you very much for the presentation. Inspector White, Chief Martin, greatly appreciate your input. For everybody out there, we will be having a presentation tomorrow morning, I believe at 9 o'clock again, with MNP. Is that the correct pronunciation of that? MNP was the consulting company that was hired to try and break down some of these numbers, and they'll be giving us a presentation tomorrow at that point in time. But to be able to get to that meeting, we've got to finish up the business at this meeting before we hit that one tomorrow. So I need someone, that's the end of presentations, for bylaw. I need a confirming bylaw passed to confirm the actions and the proceedings of today's meeting. I have a mover, moved by Councillor Hutchison, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Any questions or comments on the confirming bylaw? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. With that, completing the business on the agenda, Mr. Clerk, I can make the move to adjourn the meeting. Meeting is adjourned.